Thank you. Mr. Chair, let me thank the leadership of the committee and the subcommittee for bringing forward this legislation. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of it, and I feel like the current epidemic that is going on in our country, based on what has happened previously, I think this time we're going to get it right, meaning that our focus is going to be on treatment, and this is what this legislation is calling for. It does remind me of the past, 25 years ago, when there was a epidemic around crack cocaine. We didn't know that much about addiction at the time, and pretty much our response was focused on law enforcement. And this certainly led to a massive increase in the foster youth population, because it was one of the first times when you had women using drugs equal to men. That really hadn't happened before. And so when a woman uses a drug, the family falls apart and the kids are removed into foster care. This is happening currently with heroin, the heroin addiction, and also the prescription drugs. That foster care population is increasing again. But this time I hope that we get this side of it right as well, and instead of taking the children away, that we recognize that you can actually keep the family together and provide treatment. And there's a lot of evidence-based practices around the country that have demonstrated that you can, maybe you might have to temporarily take the kids away, but you could reunite the family after the mother goes into recovery. So many years ago, when we had a strictly law enforcement approach, there was a lot of collateral damage to that, and some of it we're dealing with now when we're looking at criminal justice reform. One of the reasons we're looking at criminal justice reform is because of the way we approached an epidemic years ago. But there is still some collateral consequences of laws that were passed years ago, and I want to make mention of one of them. And that is the fact that if a young person had a drug offense, after they were incarcerated and were released, they then were not eligible for financial aid for college. So I'm talking about somebody that has already faced the justice system, but they're also subject to extrajudicial consequences of losing their college aid. So if they've already been in front of a judge and they've paid their debt to society, then we have to think about whether or not we really want to have the collateral punishment that prevents them from continuing their education. So I've introduced the Success Act to fix that broken policy. At the heart of the Success Act is forgiveness and grace. We should be helping young people who want to go to school and get their lives on track, not making it harder for them to obtain education because of a youthful indiscretion. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think this legislation is good. I'm glad we're moving forward with it. I'm glad that our focus now is on treatment. But when we passed laws years ago, we need to take a look at some of the collateral consequences of legislation that we did, especially given what we know now about addiction, brain science, treatment, recovery, et cetera. And so I'm hoping that we pass this legislation today, but as we continue in this committee to consider criminal justice reform, that we look at some of the laws we passed previously and maybe reconsider them. Thank you very much. I yield back my time.